let's give our friends a second to start coming in, connecting, and joining us today. Okay, let's give him 30 seconds. How's everybody doing? How are my great panelists here today?
Good.
Good?
Be excited.
Nice. We're waiting for another friend to join. I hope she can make it. She doesn't have any trouble. We had a last my friend Paula couldn't make it today. So unfortunately, she had a last minute thing that she couldn't do it. And anyway, there's a lot of things to do. And I know Marina and Mike, you have a lot of things to say on this topic because of your backgrounds, your experiences, what you've lived. So I'm really excited to have you here, guys. Mm-hmm. So I see friends are starting to connect. This is good. Hello, everybody. Give us your comments here. And so as we kick this off, I want to say a few words. My name is Javier Diaz. I am the Global Brand Champion in BureauWorks. Probably you've seen me before doing industry events, in broadcasting my other live events, etc. I recently came back to BureauWorks, which is this company I'm working in right now. And we like, one of the beautiful things that I love about this company is, on top of having an amazing product and being a great family, we really like to work, use all the advantages that LinkedIn is giving us, Facebook, etc. And one of the cool things we are developing and working in is a leadership forum. It's this particular event we're doing today is a part of this industry forum, which we call Merging Minds. We will try to bring in the next weeks friends from the industry, sometimes friends from outside the industry, to come and express their opinions on leadership topics. Things that are what I want to call hot that need to be discussed, right? So today, this is my first live event doing Merging Minds, and I thought it would be good to dedicate today's time to speak about one form of discrimination that is unfortunately very embedded in ourselves, and I think we do not talk about it enough, right? I have to say I share a bit of I don't want to call it egoistic, but before I go into this, I need to remind everybody that on the 7th, on Saturday this week, is the year of Ageism, Race Awareness Days, right? So that's what we're doing today. As I was saying, I don't want to call it egoistic, but I'm going through a life transformation, sort of. Marie, those who know me here might know well. Like, I turned 40 last year, and I had a revelation. I started seeing, like, you laugh, Marina who's connected here. But I went through a transformation moment in which I started seeing things that I hadn't seen in the past, right? And I started thinking for myself, oh my God, I grew up, I grew old. And I started thinking about growing up and how the next, what the next steps of my life is going to be like. Am I going to become old? Am I going to be transforming to old? I'm saying things on my mind that I say, like, why was I saying those things? Why was I saying you're too old to do this, right? And I discovered that all of those thoughts, all of those ways of expressing ourselves are a form of ageism, are a certain form of discrimination, right? Why are we building barriers towards age? Why do we have this concept, right? So I think that doing what we're going to do today will help raise awareness on these particular things. And I hope, on top of everything, that makes you, friend that is watching, think and consider thoughts, right? As I said, my name is Javier Diaz. I'm the Global Brand Champion in BureauWorks. I travel all the time. Today I'm in Boston, here in the US, on the way to Log World next week in California. After this little introduction of what we're going to tackle today, why we're here today, and what we're doing, I want to introduce my panelists. There's a couple of friends that couldn't make it. We still hope my friend Julia Tarditi can make it. I probably should put some she'll show up. But I have two very interesting industry figures and very interesting friends of mine here who are going to express their opinions on some questions I want to ask them on this particular topic. And I want to introduce, without further ado, my amazing friend Marina Grayson. Hi, Marina. Welcome.
Hi, Javi. Great to see you.
It's good to see you. It's good to see you. You have such energy. Like I love about you that you also experienced a big transformation professionally in the last few years, right? You were working for a very big technology and learning company, right? Then you decided to found your own business, right? Basically. Well, Maria, for those who don't know her, she's the founder of the Localization Advocate and Academy. And to me, she's an anti-ageism champion. You have to be here, Marina.
Thank you. So good to be here, Javi. And thanks to you and BureauWorks for having this forum. It's so important. We're going to get into why. My heart is full to actually talk about these things. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thanks for being here. And also, I was one of the important points of view to express today is also the point of view of how companies and how recruiters and global talent acquisition managers are tackling the ageism, right? This particular thing. So I decided to invite another friend of mine, my friend Michael Klinger, who is the CEO, founder of Ansu Global, right, Michael?
Hi, Javi. Thanks for inviting me. It's always nice to be talking on this. I thought you invited me because I'm older, but maybe it's because it's the staffing part.
No. You're not old. Nobody's old here. Nobody's old. I asked you. I would love to hear your opinions on that staffing part. And as we go through the talk today, I'm going to mention a couple of things that, hey, sounded still interesting, let's call it that way. When I spoke to friends and I invited them to come and speak, there was some like, I'm still scared of coming up and talking because I might have some stuff coming from the company I work for. That's the feeling that I had, right? So I want to tackle these things today, right? So, well, guys, I prepared a few questions that let's see if another friend of ours joins, but if she can make it, she'll do it. If not, it's okay. We have a lot of good experience here and a lot of stuff, right? So I would like to start this talk by asking both of you to please define ageism. Is it really treating people differently according to age? Marina?
Okay, this is so wonderful to talk about this. And just even talking about it helps us understand it. Okay. Ageism, technically, yes, it's all about perceptions. It can be an internal perception that older means not able. It can be society's perceptions where only the youth have technology prowess. Only a certain age group is hireable. Only a certain age. And ageism works against the younger and the older. But
yes, indeed.
And you're full aware of that, both of you gentlemen. But I think we're going to focus on the older side. And I think just having an awareness of internalized ageism when you're as young as you feel, right? And yes. Think of all the stereotypical images in your mind right now. Look around your company. Are they all the same age? Look around your neighborhood. Are they all the same age? Are they olders? And what do they do? You go to the grocery store, you go to McDonald's, you see somebody older working. Who's in corporate offices? I think the first start, you open your eyes and look around. And those little messages that come to us through media, the media loves the youth, which I'm not knocking, but if you're going to sell a skincare cream for somebody 50 plus and you have a 20 or 30-year-old, what's the message?
Okay, Michael, like Marina has presented her definition of ageism, and you haven't been invited here for being old. No way. But I want to hear your definition of ageism. And I have a very important question as we go, because you were the perfect person to ask this. So please, but can you define what you understand by this?
It's funny. I just cut out an article. A woman, I don't know if she was in Minnesota. She just is in the Guinness Book of World Records because she's 104 years old and she did
the bungee jumping, the parachute jumping. Yeah.
And she said, age is a state of mind. I like how Marina talked about, different ages, different people, because also you got a message from your friend at Uber, ageism with women. How does that impact,
Yes.
the sexism and ageism? But I would just say, I have a friend, her parents she's a dentist and her parents are from India. And when they turned 65, they decided they couldn't drive anymore because you're not supposed to, at their age, you're supposed to stop driving. Every culture has an impact, on ageism and how you fit into, you know. But I think the other part I'd want to mention is ageism is we all have it inside ourselves. You just said I turned 40, this, I turned 60 and I'm that. I can't do this anymore. So part of ageism is mind, whether it's done out there or in here. It's judging someone based on their number.
Yes, indeed. And I gotta ask you as well, has any one of you experienced ageism? Like Marina, have you experienced ageism? Like, for example, I'm going to apply for this job. I'm perfect I'm a perfect fit, thanks to experience, thanks not only to that, to soft skills, whatever. But you feel that they haven't hired you for being old? Has that happened to you?
Ouch. Okay. There's two aspects to answer that question. Number one, localization favors experience. However, technology sectors favor a narrow band of ages, in my observation. That said, has it happened to me? I don't know. Why? It's illegal. It's illegal in the United States to ban somebody from getting a job according to age. So it's very, very difficult to prove. But sure, there's been opportunities that I've looked at being really, really well matched. And, I've got a personality. I work well with everybody else. I know a lot. I have a lot of skills, stability, blah, blah, blah. I have great interviewing. I have all that in pocket. The minute we turn on the Zoom and we have that face-to-face, what happens then? We can't prove it. And at this point, when I observe who was hired, was it somebody younger? Oh, yeah. So how do you do that? So I'm saying all this because the people watching deserve to know it can happen. It has happened. And talking to friends, I observe all the time. That said, you have to be top of your game. You've got to be on par with other candidates with your skills and your resume and all that. You've got to have that. But even if you have those crystal clear, what happens? So just putting.
Yeah. Michael, has that happened to you during your career, lately, in the past? Because as Marina said at the beginning, it's not only you're not qualified or whatever, it's like you're too young to do this or you don't have experience. There was a debate the other day, like young people not getting jobs or not getting, because they're too young. How am I going to start now? But has it happened to you?
Well, yeah, and I don't want to be arrogant in this way, but the last few jobs I've had, I'm the one running the company. So if I don't hire myself, I could say, Mike, you're too old for this, but I don't know. Maybe Mike shouldn't be running. But I remember interviewing a guy. He was he got his PhD in poetry, and he wanted to be a localization manager. I said, I don't see why, you're right out of school, So maybe I had a little ageism there, but he said, this is what I can do. And he ended up jumping in with enthusiasm. But personally, in terms of being hired, I haven't been in that position. I certainly see it with people hiring.
Yeah. Well, we're going to go deeper into that because this thing you said is interesting, Mike. It's very interesting. Do you think, and you help companies with staffing, right? So let me ask you, do you think they're already thinking about this and doing enough to avoid it so far? Or is still like, we're still far away from anti-ageism hiring policies, for example? What do you think?
Yeah, you really have to kind of drill down. I think Marina pointed out two very important things. Technology folks, I mean, I grew up when they went from manual to electric typewriter. I was overwhelmed. People now grow up with, the internet. So technology folks tend to like to hire people younger who are more familiar with that. Um, but in terms of localization, it's really about, can you do the job and what's your track record, right?
Mhm.
So the question is, does it exist? For sure. But I think it's more, Javi, who are you going to hire in your role? You're going to hire someone you're comfortable with. Is
Yeah.
that, yeah. Does that
Can
mean
you,
it's,
can,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I was. It makes me think as well. Can you name some strategies, some particular things that are being taken care of while hiring to avoid ageism? Like, or what? Or because people listening here might be hiring managers as well, and they
Right.
want to ask, "Hey, I haven't really thought of this. Can you, because since this is your professional thing."
Yeah. Again, you to reiterate, you look around your company, and if everyone in that group is 30 years old or less, it's likely that's the culture of your company. And so someone shows up 45 and is an old timer, you got to wonder about. So part of it as a hiring manager is, are you hiring different ages, different skill sets? So that's one thing. What I do for people who are looking for a job, I know people who've been in the business for 35 years, which I think is great, but you don't want to have a resume that goes back 35 years.
No, that's true, and that's true, and that's
So you cut
yeah,
out,
yeah.
yeah. So you cut out the last 20 years. I mean, the first 20 years, and you put. But as a hiring manager, you want to be very clear. I need this skill set. I need this information. And if that's the case, then you pick the one who has that skill set, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But the reality is, they need someone who's very familiar with AI and certain, as a computational linguist who speaks Japanese, then you go with someone who's AI, computational linguist who speaks Japanese, whether they're 30 or 60, unless there's technology components where they don't understand.
You think it's easier in technology than in other sectors to be less or more ageistic? Is it easier? What do you think?
Marina, go ahead. You answer that one.
Well, I always like to be ahead of the game, and if something doesn't exist, I'll create it. So loc tools. We didn't have a way to really get into loc tools, so I created a community to really study them and look at them. And then AI comes in. And so I got to see VeraWorks tool suite really close up. So you have to investigate no matter what age you are. And then all the things you need to do, be at the top of your game. The thing is, the digital native that's so popular for many those Silicon Valley companies, consider the digital adopter, the people that help build the technology, and consider UX has not really served elderly populations. Actually,
Mm-hmm.
the founder of user experience design, Don Norman, has totally been disappointed at how UX is not keeping up with the capabilities of the people who have money. So technology could really get a boost from older workers. Just my
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 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 yeah. I get it. I get it. I get it. I see a lot of as well, and I personally believe I'm fortunate because I think I always have the best of both worlds. I mean, I can work in America with American friends, American clients, traveling here. As I told you, I'm in the States right now, but I also live in Europe, and I think I personally believe that this is my belief. You might correct me if I'm not wrong. I think that America should be proud because America has done a lot to fight for other types of discriminations. There's a lot of advancements here. There's a lot of advancement. I wonder now, and I ask myself, is the world or America doing enough to also include ageism and fight it include it as a way of discriminating and fight it? Michael, what do you think?
Is America doing enough? Well, they're certainly not doing,
I like when you laugh. So that's like,
they're not doing enough with racism. So ageism is just one more. Again, I think America, you talk about a culture, other than the advertisements for everyone has to be 18 and perfect. People working the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Look at, look at the president of the United States. But I think other cultures, you do have a kind of a transition time. You retire, you do this, grandmother takes care of that. And I think this culture has less of that, less of a history. So I feel like it's a little more open-ended, to that than I don't see, I don't see, I lived in France for a while. If you're 75, you're not typically encouraged to be out there, being an entrepreneur.
yeah. I see. Yeah. In Europe, it's different, right? In Europe, but I don't know. We have Julia has joined us. Hi, Julia.
Hello. I'm so sorry I'm late. So sorry.
No worries. You're never late. Thank you for being here. Thanks for taking the call. Let me quickly introduce my good friend Julia. I always say, I last saw her in spring. To me, she's one of the best speakers in our industry. Her storytelling is unique. You sit down there, she's telling, I don't know what kind of stuff she's talking about. And you're like, wow. I listen. I don't know what she's talking about, but I listen. And I asked her to come I asked her if she could please come and join us today it's my first session at this Merging Minds community event. And I have to introduce Julia Tarditi, who is the head of global experience at Qualtrics. Hi.
Hello. Hi, can you hear me fine?
Yes.
Awesome.
Totally.
Okay, so I am so happy to be here. I don't want to crush the conversation, so I don't know if you were going sort of around the room or anything like that. So I've just turned 40 last year. I've always worked in digital in London. And when I joined, I was obviously, young or as young as the others. And one of the things that struck me as odd in the UK was how many people in digital were of the same age group. Like you wouldn't see someone senior from an age perspective unless they were the CFO, the CEO, or the COO. That's it. Like even from a CTO perspective, that was that perception unsaid that it had to be a young guy, because otherwise he would not have been in the know or up to date with the latest technology. And always men. The older folks would never be women. And I started wondering why. Like that was obviously before I sort of settled down and had a family. But you know how they say you look at the leadership of your company and you need to feel that sense of belonging. And that pushes you to strive to be a part of it in the future, right? And to cover that mile. If you do not see yourself reflected in that mirror, you already know that there's no way for you to win that race. Right?
Is this ageistic, or is this more like a generational kind of conflict that we face and that we will always face, right? That's also my question. Like, I don't know, or at what point is it ageistic, or is it like, it's the time for people that are in the more advanced part of their career to be leading because they might have been there for a longer time, or is it really because they are older that they have to lead? That's my question as well, because I don't know.
I think it depends on the culture, but I think there is this unconscious bias that we have both ways, right? Like young people assuming that you need young people to do a young people's job, like a cool job. I'm not sure how to put it. And older people's perception that experience comes anagraphically. And that automatically, almost like as the years pass, that is something, for example, in Italy, where I was born and I've just recently returned, there is that thing of like, oh, you got to be a certain, you got to be 45 upwards in order to have a position of responsibility. And if you do apply for a position of responsibility before, right, like a director level position, everyone's like, but how old are you? Which in a lot of countries you can't even ask, like from an interview perspective. Like in some countries they ask, well, as a woman they probably ask, are you done having kids? But the second thing they ask is, how old are you? And they demean it in a way like as a barrier. Oh no, you're too old, but like you may be too young. And so I think there's that unconscious bias, and it's more ingrained in some cultures than others, or maybe in some cultures it's more ingrained sort of towards younger people, and in some others towards older people. Who's the target of that ageism implicit bias? But a lot of time it's really unconscious, I think, and it's something that we can work on. Like it takes a lot of time. It takes a few generations because you need to talk about it.
It takes a few generations.
At the school, right? School age, and you need to keep talking about it in the family, and you need to keep talking about it when they reach university and in the workplace. So it will take a couple of generations, but we gotta start.
We gotta start. I agree with you. I have another question prepared about this thing because and it comes up in mind now because you mentioned it, and it was about the, ageism and other types of discrimination. Now we were talking before you joined about me thinking that at least, as you say, things are moving in the positive direction. Markets like the States, Europe, in our tech sector, looks like there's been a lot of there's a certain level of advances to bridge the gaps that are in certain ways in certain forms of discrimination, right? And I was wondering to ask you, because I think you mentioned it right now, do you think that, or how does ageism intersect with other forms of discrimination that are there that, companies, staffing companies have to deal with? What steps can we make to ensure a more inclusive environment for everyone? I want to ask Marina first, if you may. This comes, I think it's very interesting because it comes from what Julia just mentioned.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Oh, welcome, Julia. Great to see you. Yeah, I think the intersectionality is really difficult because you've got ageism, and then once it crosses over with, somebody's from a different racism goes in there, and then, ableism. And when you have multiple factors like that, how do you get out of that far down place? And again, you can't really prove it, but then it becomes a matter of internalizing the messages about I must be this and I must be that, and to actually have a chance to feel like you have a chance.
And how does it interact with other forms of discrimination, Marine, in your opinion? How do you think, like with race or I don't know, sex?
So the gender, and the most obvious to me in my mind, because of my experience, the female, and we've talked about this a bit already today, the female not seeing others who look like you. That's like the most eye-opening way to approach it. And when you have a woman who is older, there's 2 strikes against you. So you don't feel you are there. You don't feel visible. You don't feel, and that's the thing, visibility. Someone who feels invisible won't even try to get jobs, won't even try to put themselves out there. And if you have the feeling that as a woman who is older, I'm not even going to try to take classes to improve my skill set or even work on things or even feel confident about presenting myself. So I think, those other isms work against. I saw a LinkedIn post a while ago, a woman who was a Black woman who was older, and she was wanting to get a job and have all this great courage. I really would love to connect and say, how are you today? Because that was during the pandemic. You had difficulties with connection. You had, all these multiple crises going on. So I want to say, at least in my opinion, find support from others who are similar to you. And then let's reach across these different rows
Yeah.
and give each other support and
Yeah.
make it visible.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's very interesting, Marina. And I have another question for my other lady friend here on this panel as well, because I think, unfortunately, and by what Marina is saying as well, I think that there's a lot of mixing between ageism and sex discrimination that you might be seeing, right? It happens. So allow me to ask Julia, can you share some thoughts or any barriers or fears females might be having in this regard with these professional settings?
I think, again, that I think that depends also on, it's a generational item, and I hope that in a few years' time things will be different. But I think we are so used to this image of older women being at home looking after the children of their sons or daughters, or like maybe going to the local club or volunteering or doing something that is not work related. It's just not, it's as if the two things don't belong together. There's the narrative, right? The books you read, right? It starts with children's literature. The granny is always at home. And the granny is pretty young. She's probably in her 50s. And it's, if they're not at home, what are they doing? They're at the local club or volunteering or doing some charity events. And so it's going to take some time, and it's never the same for older men, right? The way we picture older men in literature and entertainment and TV series is way more related to the workplace, as if they belong there. Wow. And I haven't seen much shifting. Now you see at least actresses being scripted for roles in which they're older, but that's been less than 10 years. So it's totally new. So something is moving, right? We want to see more older women on screen, so maybe we'll be ready to see them in the workplace. But I
watched yesterday on the plane. Sorry to stop. Sorry to jump. I was watching yesterday on the plane the Indiana Jones and how the last movie and how they rejuvenized the guy. It's crazy. That's I don't know. Sorry to stop you, Julia. Sorry, but it made me think of that.
That's it, really. Like I don't. So for me, this is. But maybe I'm more ready to see it because I'm a woman, right? Like my radar is a bit more on towards this form of discriminations that are mixed, right? But I'm sure there's loads towards men as well. I think it's also very industry specific. Like in digital, there is that bias, right? It's just not a place for old folks, and I don't know why that is, because we do need that enrichment, and it starts with hiring older folks in more junior roles. I think what we need to do is cut that perception that you need to have like a senior leadership position in order to be an older guy and in business and digital. Why? There needs to be diversity, and it starts with hiring from an age point of view. And there needs to be, I know this is controversial, but like people talk about quota for females, like it needs to be quota for older people. And like I said, I haven't come across, I've worked in localization for 15 years. I haven't come across a localization manager that was any older than myself. Mm-hmm. And also as a candidate, so I don't know if they don't pitch, because I would have interviewed them. And so I think the unconscious bias is also preventing us, when we're older, to apply to some roles that we perceive as being out of reach because of our age. So maybe we also need to put something in the job descriptions and to entice people to feel free to apply.
Ooh, I love it.
That's a great point. That's a real good point. Michael, would you like to add anything here as well?
Yeah, I mean, yes, a sanity check. There's the reason there aren't a lot of, say, women in certain roles or men in other roles or whatever is because there weren't. And so putting quotas in is one decision. Like the schools in the U.S., they started putting quota in to have African Americans. Why? Well, because of the history, they didn't get a chance to be in those roles. And then quotas are saying, well, that's not fair. So the reality is going back to, you look around your company and you see that everyone is young and female, then maybe you need to hire older men or younger men or middle-aged or vice versa. I think in the localization space, mostly it's probably over 60, 65% female. But in the digital space, it's probably younger and male. So part of this is, again, as Julia said, maybe you have to bring in quotas if you want to address the issue of not having enough older people or not having enough women managers or whatever it be, or having not enough trans people, or we can go down the line. They're the latest. Now Black people are in charge, but trans people are out in the street. So
you've seen. I mean, we mentioned that it's intersects with other forms of discrimination, unfortunately, right?
Yeah.
I have a question for you, because my good friend Jose said, like, he's one of the best recruiters he knows. Reach out to him, and I want to ask you, and perhaps I can ask this question to Julia too, because I know she hires people as well. But as a recruiter, what proactive measures do you believe are effective in countering ageism during the hiring process? Have you personally integrated any of those measures into your recruitment processes? And I'd like if you can to give us real examples, please, because the friends listening, they're hiring people, and I'm sure they'll love to hear from an expert things they could think of next time they're hiring somebody.
It's funny you asked that, Javi. There was a woman who posted here in the chat. She said, I finally put my date of college, 1988, and after 400 applications, I got a job, because I feel empowered by saying my age. But I hate to say it, but I usually take that date out for myself or anyone else. Because when I went to school, there wasn't electricity. No, but I take it out because so concrete things that we do in terms of staffing is, as I mentioned earlier, take the last 10 years experience, one, and you don't have to, age is really not important in terms of for the job. So I don't want to have either attention to not enough experience. I try to represent people's most relevant experience. So I take college, when they graduated college, or when I worked in the 80s. No, I take that out because that was a long time ago. So that's something concrete we do. But I talk to, and I'm hearing from managers and say, Mike, they're not going to hire this person. Why? They're too old. I mean, everyone, the owner is 35 years old. 3/4 of the people are in their 20s. And so this person that's in their 60s is probably not going to be a cultural fit. So that's a reality that we see.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm sure
it's difficult. Julia, it's difficult. It's really difficult, right? Like, Julia, you are hiring? I know you hire many times. Which measures do you take into account to try to avoid ageism?
It's a good question. So I could have done better, I think. Because some of the things you only realize when you're in, and then you see the same candidates day in, day out. They all look the same. They're probably born within the same 5-year bracket. I have put disclaimers on job descriptions that say, we are intentionally hiring for a diverse team, both from a nationality, language, diverse capabilities, and age bracket perspective. And that is something that you need to agree with your recruitment team, because if there's an initial step where they go out and they fetch people, you need to tell them exactly that you don't want to see the same candidates that look alike. You just don't want to. You're going to reject them. And then it's important, if you have like someone else other than yourself, like maybe your current reports will do a panel interview to candidates, you need to prep them and give that intentions, right? Say, this is what I want. Like, I want us to be diverse. So please do not screen out people because they don't look like you or they haven't heard of the latest TMS because maybe they worked in the same place for 25 years, right? What are the, and you need to agree with the other, with yourself and the other interviewers or recruiters, like, what are the skills that you can teach someone, the gaps that you can feel that someone can learn in a week, and what other stuff that is non-negotiable someone needs to have already, and that depends on, also your time capacity and how much high stakes that role is, how much value you place on that role, and how much enablement you're ready to put into it. But for me, what age, the gaps or the cons of hiring someone that's older are things that, at least in our industry, you can fill those gaps within 3 days. If someone wants to learn and fill the gaps, it's never a showstopper. If anything, I prefer someone older that has been in situations, the crappy situations, pardon my French, the very happy situations, the overhiring, the overfiring, we're going to change the systems and notice we're going to bring in the older ones. And they've seen, because they have that background onto which you can project new things and you can absorb them. But very often, the unconscious bias towards people that are older starts within the team itself, the team that would become the peer group of that hire. And they don't realize that because it's so implicit. It's how we're brought up and how they've seen it in other companies, especially in digital. So you need to work on that team. You need to upskill that team to really think diversity first, because it's enriching. And so as a hiring manager, that's the first job you got to do before you go and sit someone else to complement that team.
It's funny because, it's funny, quote unquote, it's funny. Like, we tend to live longer now. What's going to happen, right? Like, that's like my niece was born 3 weeks ago, for example, and she's probably going to make it to 100 and something years. What's going to happen as well, right? So I have a question for you guys, and it's as well another question that I thought of. Like, considering perhaps the global demographic shift towards an aging population, right? How can we revolutionize our approaches to localization and globalization to better cater to the growing and influential market of other consumers without falling into ageist stereotypes? And everyone can.
One thing, sorry, Javi, I don't want to take any more time, but one thing I've seen doing, I haven't done it myself, but one thing I've heard people are doing is they ask people, they interview only remotely, and they ask people to keep the cameras off. Right?
Yeah. In England, I remember that's quite advanced. I remember back in the day applying for jobs in the UK, and then you cannot even attach your photo to the.
Yeah, you can't add your photo.
CV,
You can't even ask questions that would lead you to understand how old a person is. Like, what year have you graduated from uni? Or, those kind of questions, like, are legally, someone could say that you had a bias and that's why you didn't select them. So you can't ask them. You can't have a picture. But it's not a bad idea to have at least the first couple of interviews up until a test, if that's what you do, right? Like, maybe you do a test, like a challenge or whatever, to see someone's thought process, not to see someone's face up until that moment. And then you select based on the past challenge or whatever. And then only later, maybe you have a last meeting in person or whatever. And that's when hiring through COVID maybe helped in some ways. But I have never tried myself, but I think it's an interesting idea.
What struck me, Javi, Maria, just is this is my dating me, but I think, for older people, they have phones that are simplified. So you press this button to send, press this button to receive, because they're not. And so if we're having a population that's going to live to 80, 90, 100, and for example, ChatGPT and AI and all the technology that's fascinating, it's interesting to have people who can translate it to those age brackets. So you say, what can we do to address ageism? Look at the value. There's a large population that doesn't understand this technology, and hiring people that could work with them to marketing and to adjust the technology to simplify it. So that's one thought that comes to mind.
Mm-hmm. Marina, can you add anything?
I love this conversation. So, Mike, just exactly what you're talking about. To me, there's a spectrum. Okay, we're coming to understand different groups according to the spectrum of things. They're starting at one end, going to the other. And for aging populations, there's a spectrum of ability, physical, mental, and technology-wise. Now, think about that. There are certain of those populations who have difficulty with technology, for sure. At the same time, there's much older who are brilliant with technology. So I think offering all of the things that a younger person would have, just having it available, and then to serve those who have difficulties with technology, absolutely. As I said earlier, UX design, the user experience design that goes into all products needs to address making things less complicated in a way to serve everyone for ableism, ageism, everything. Because somebody who has physical less ability, they need those products to be made simpler. So just some things to consider. When you take care of one thing, you take care of another. So I think put it out there. Don't disallow someone from having something, a product, a job, but at the same time, make it accessible. And by that, I mean accessible in every way for world markets, for physical ability, for age.
Mm-hmm.
And open it wide up.
Yeah. Very interesting, Marina. Like Julia, I think she has to leave us. She had to jump into an emergency meeting. But anyway, like we're facing the last few minutes here. I want to ask all of those following us to share with us their thoughts, because I'd like to share them here, read them. Because look, Paula, our friend Paula, self-awareness, curiosity, empathy, try to learn, critical thinking, and approach to problem solving. I found no correlation with age. That makes a lot of sense as well, right? Jose, actively skew the system to, for instance, showcase your older employees in junior positions as success case for diversity. That's a very, very interesting point. That's a very interesting point you guys mentioned there. So I just have one last question to ask you. In what ways can individuals challenge ageist attitudes and behaviors in their personal lives and communities? And what impact can this have on the broader social perception of age? Because I believe, like, I love what Julia said before. This is a problem, a thing that will not be solved from today to tomorrow in a day. It's going to take years. It's going to take time. But how can we start doing this right now? How can we, when we see some attitude like this, what can we do? As we said at the beginning, this does not only affect older people, this affects everybody. This affects younger people too, right? So please, Michael, you go first because
I'm older. No, I think I think what I said. I think what I said earlier. I think it's individual because it's like, how do we do with our own unconscious bias? I think we all have those biases. The culture pounds certain messages, and we have to be introspective. What someone wrote, self-awareness, curiosity, empathy, drive to learn. Of course, there's nothing to do with age. It's really, every moment is new. So if we're not constantly looking internally and evaluating our own internal bias to ageism, racism, sexism, that's really the first step. So what can we do? I don't have any...
It's difficult, right? It's like, I think it's one's introspective thought, like, hey, I realize there's something wrong here. I have biased. I think it's a life-changing thing, but maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
Put a sticker note here on your computer, say, like, think twice before I say these things as well.
Yeah, Antonia just mentioned subcultures look to the older for wisdom. I lived
Yes.
in West Africa, and you're so respected when you're older. There's such a level of respect, and you're treated with such dignity. And here, there's such a tendency to look at, is this person going to a nursing home? So I think culture also impacts what we do. But I think in the U.S., looking at our own biases is an important part of that.
Yeah. Marina, what would you like to add? Anything?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think, yeah, we're all champions of something, and for me, age is very important to me, because not so much I've had difficulty, but I have great empathy. I had, seeing my mother decline in a nursing home and seeing how people treated her, seeing people who are a certain number age and having difficulty, and yeah, the entertainment industry, Hollywood, only recently.
Yeah, that's what I was telling you. Yeah.
Yeah, but at the same time, George Clooney gets a job no matter what, and he is 62 years old. His wife is 45. I don't know. So I think the most important thing I want to just kind of tie up with this whole thing, Julia said something so profound. I wrote it down and I love it. She said, let's upskill these teams to think diversity first. And DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion groups really need to plus the others. And I think we're going to get somewhere.
Yeah. I think we're gonna need time. We're really gonna need time and a lot of thinking. But yeah, dear friends, I have no more questions for you. It's a pleasure, and I like the whole idea of today's session was to really start making everybody think that this is a form of discrimination, that it exists, unfortunately. That at some point, I mean, I told you about what made me think about it, which is like getting to a midlife stage of my life where I thought of, oh my God, I'm thinking about these things. I'm doing it without me noticing, and I started sort of like being way more conscious about how you treat people, how you think of people, etc. Right? A difference regarding to age, right? So. Like I would say, like my final thoughts, I'd like to share a couple of thoughts. It's like basically everyone should do their retrospective, think inside, be empathetic, as Julia said, give opportunities. Yeah, that's what I thought. And you guys want to add anything else, Marina, Michael? Like Marina, any final thoughts?
Keep going, and if you're older, just put yourself out there. If you're on the younger side, again, look for opportunities and just don't let things hold you back. You have a voice, you have a place. Let's put it together, and working together, like anything, we can achieve so much. And watch everyone for ageism awareness. There's some wonderful TED Talks. Ashton Applewhite has an amazing TED Talk about ageism, and it really talks about important things going on now. So go out there.
Raise your voice if you experience this as well. Raise your voice. Let others know. I think it helps as well, right? Mike, any other thoughts you want to add as a closing?
I love getting older. I feel more and more myself. So I think it's a real gift.
I stopped doing my hair. Look at that. I have the gray coming in, just for you, Javi, and for this panel.
Oh, I love it. So I think the only one that is scared is me, that I just turned 40, right? That's the only thing. That's the only one here, right?
You're just
Jose Palomares knows well. He knows. I speak with him about it a lot. He knows that I actually I am not scared to say that I suffered of anxiety when I turned 40, because I started seeing life of like, oh my God, what's like, not the party was over. You have to focus and you have to start thinking of those things, right? So yeah, that's it. So, well, I think it's been an inspiring conversation. I hope the friends enjoyed it, those who followed us. I hope that if they just took an idea from any of the friends that I invited today, I think it's good. I just wanted to, the goal for this first Emerging Minds event that I host is to really raise awareness, to say that this is there think twice. And I hope, well, I see you in the next editions there. And I'm thinking of next week, guys, is Mental Awareness Day, if I'm not mistaken. Not being an expert in that topic, I'd like to use some time as well to perhaps interview somebody or do some chat with somebody that is a real expert in this field. So feel free to be here. Well, and I guess Marina, not you, but I guess I'll see Michael next week in California at Lock World, if I'm not mistaken.
Maybe. I don't.
All right.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Javi.
It's a pleasure, guys.
Thanks so much.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Mike.
Bye.